So, folks, it's time for us to talk about. Did I honestly open this segment by saying it's time to talk about? It's time to talk about Tucker Carlson. Uh, and I have to say, it's been really disappointing to see a bunch of people from Mediasan to other folks in like the leftist like streaming content creator space talking about how like Tucker Carlson is doing a great job. Like, look at him. He's an anti-Zionist. He's against the Iran war. Like, it's really frustrating to see all of this. Uh, Buying Tucker Carlson at face value that's been going on from pretty smart people, from people I tend to think have a pretty good view of things. And it's frustrating because Tucker Carlson is a dangerous white nationalist. And I think a lot of people would acknowledge that. And I think some of the reaction to him lately has come from a place of like essentially being like, well, the ostensible establishment left has not been doing a very good job of being vocally against like the Iran war, against Israel's settler colonialism, etc. And that's true that it has been lacking. It is true that effectively the left as a whole has ceded a lot of ideological ground to be taken advantage of by Tucker Carlson. The issue that I have is like you can't be doing this shit. You can't be doing this shit. I want to make sure that people are aware that this is exactly what white nationalists do. White nationalists, they find something, anything really, a position that seems reasonable, and then they work from that. They use that, they stake their flag there, and then what they do is they attract a new group of people into their audience and start radicalizing them with hatred, with deeply hateful rhetoric and ideas. You actually see this happen with people like Nick Fuentes. When you ask why does Nick Fuentes have like an audience, it's because Nick Fuentes is tactical about when he presents a moderate view of himself. When he presents like a version of himself that is more palatable to people who aren't fully on board with like the white nationalist sentiments that he has and positions he has, right? And it is an ongoing issue that I have where it seems like a lot of folks on the left take this at face value. And right now I'm thinking about like people like the Young Turks in particular, who have been taking this kind of anti-war woke right narrative and kind of running with it as if the idea of like being anti-war in this particular context is arrived at honestly, as if Tucker Carlson is anti-war because that's just like a belief he has. He's just a pacifist. And that's just not at all the case. Like, Tucker Carlson is pretty clearly doing what he is doing right now to court the audience of far-right anti-Semites that exists out there. The people who flock to Candace Owens' content, to Nick Fuentes' content. The reason, by the way, that like some of these characters beef with each other is because they're fighting over this radicalized anti-Semitic audience. And that isn't to say that being anti-Zionist is the same as being anti-Semitic. It's just that in this particular case, the left has left the ideological battlefield too vacant. And conservatives like Tucker Carlson are moving in to try and take advantage of that, to stake out this anti-war position as like a something that makes him stand out as a reasonable individual while pushing his white nationalist ideas. And that's really dangerous. And in particular, I wanted to focus here on a clip that was posted by The Economist. Now, The Economist interviewed Tucker Carlson a few days ago, and a lot of people have been latching onto this as like, oh my God, look at that, Tucker Carlson. He said it. He said the quiet part. He said the quiet part out loud. We need to be against this. Like, oh my God, the center left has lost on the issue of Israel. And like, I want to look at this with clear eyes and like kind of help everyone here understand what's happening. So let's dive into it.
In your copious podcasting about this in the last 2 weeks, you have made the argument very strongly that the United States has been pushed into something not in its own national interest by pressure from Israel and the lobbying power of Israel.
Well, it has been. The question is whether the person who makes the ultimate decision, who would be President Trump, should have pushed back. That's it. Of course, Trump should have pushed back.
As previous.
And again, this is what allows him to look reasonable. Where he's like, of course, Trump shouldn't have taken us into this war, because that is a correct position to have. The issue is he is coming at this to court an audience of people who believe that Jews control the world, that Jews are behind the machinations that have convinced Donald Trump to go along with this. You know, like that's what he's doing here. He's good at switching codes to speak to moderates. Exactly, Max Danger. Exactly. What's the difference in them covering a Tucker or Nick elevating their voice and you covering them on your streams? Is it simply in the type of framing? I think so. I think you need to cover this as a white nationalist who is that's what he's doing. He's going here as a white nationalist. And if you are not properly framing this, I think it is actually really dangerous. I think it's actually super dangerous if you are coming at this blind and just saying, oh, well, look at this guy. He's supposedly on the far right, but look at how reasonable he is right now. And it's so frustrating because this is classic white nationalist 101. This is what they've been doing for the last century plus. Anytime they are trying to mainstream these white nationalist talking points. Tucker Carlson has been a white nationalist his entire existence at Fox News. His entire existence post Fox News, he got even worse. And ignoring that part to simply be look, he's right, look at him, whoa, how could someone who's far right be right about something? Ignores the fact that the reason he is right on this issue is because he's pushing something else, something hateful. All right. And I think that it is important to point out here what he is doing.
As presidents have done.
To some extent, some very limited extent. George W. Bush didn't push back. We wound up in the Iraq War, and now everyone pretends, oh, had nothing to do with Israel. I was there. I was talking to Bush. That's not true. That's a lie. And that's why it's so important, from my perspective, to say out loud what is true before history is rewritten and disappears. And it's lying, and it gets us here. Because we say, oh, no, lobbying efforts had no effect. Really? We say that about our pharmaceutical policy? No. Everybody understands.
And this is again a part of it. Lobbying efforts had no effect. We all know that's not true. Everyone who thinks about it for even half a second knows that that's not true. He is putting up a straw man to enable himself to make white nationalist talking points. This is what he's doing. And it's deeply frustrating to see people take the bait on this and treat him as if he is coming at this as a good faith actor. He's not. He's not good faith at all.
Understands that every policy a large government makes, including
Charlie Kirk did this. Most of the prominent white nationalists in the far right circles do this exact thing.
Is influenced by various stakeholders who were affected by that policy. But this is the one area we have to be no, it had nothing to do with the fact that his biggest donors were pushing him to do this, or the BB visited 7 times in 1 year. Are you joking? I'm not going to play along with the lies anymore. I don't hate Jews. I don't hate Israel. I love my country. This has happened.
It's pretty this is the thing that's pretty interesting here, right? is first and foremost says, I don't hate Jews, I don't hate Israel. Do you know what the number one thing that white nationalists say as they spew their racist rhetoric and hatred for the world to see? Anytime you talk to a white nationalist, anytime you see them trying to make themselves sound reasonable, they will say, I'm not racist. I'm not racist. I don't hate black people. I don't hate Jews. Like, that's what, like they say that, but then they like go into how they believe in ethno-states, right? Like, this is just white nationalism 101. Like, you can go back, exactly, Brutus Magnus, I was just about to bring up Richard Spencer. You can go back and look at Richard Spencer talk, and he will straight up be saying this. And then, like, 2 hours later, there's video of him, like, Sieg Heiling at, like, a private Nazi party. You know? Like, it's crazy. And the fact that people are buying this is deeply disturbing to me.
Yet again, I can give you a whole list of previous times where it's happened. And I think we need to know what happened so we don't hurt ourselves further.
I am not saying don't blame Israel. I think Israel has its own national interests, and Israel was certainly pushing for things. But I think there is more agency and therefore more responsibility with the President of the United States and the Trump administration.
I wouldn't disagree. He represents me. I live here.
But that's important, because in the way you
Israel
described
pushed him into this. Now,
Again, Israel pushed him into this. Let's be real clear here. Donald Trump went into this himself. Like, Israel does not have the ability to push the United States to do anything. But there are a number of people in this country, and I think that, again, Tucker kind of glosses over this. There are a number of people, for a wide variety of reasons, not associated with the Israeli government, who have been pushing for decades for the United States to attack Iran. And it has everything to do with, like, US imperialism, with control over oil stockpiles, etc., etc., etc. And the fact is, you have all those people, all of those war hawks, who have ingratiated themselves with Donald Trump specifically to try and make something like this happen. Because they are lobbied not by Israel, but by the oil and gas industry, who thought perhaps this was their time. This could be their time where they are able to seize control of the oil fields in Iran. And, like, it is true that Israel is also lobbying for this to happen, that Israel was also pushing for this to happen. But to make it seem like this is a direct one-to-one cause and effect without a number of different other extraneous factors that play deeply into this decision. I mean, the fact that Donald Trump has a long history of installing, like, oil and gas CEOs as different advisors, as different people who are telling him what to do, etc. And the fact that, like, a lot of those people were around him saying, yeah, this is exactly what it's going to be Venezuela too. Let's go. Now's the time. Go, 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 go. Like, those oil and gas CEOs, they knew this was going to be a clusterfuck, but they thought it was worth it so that their companies that they're going to return to when this is all said and done are going to reap massive profits when, you know, or if the United States is able to clinch those oil fields in some kind of takeover, right? And, like, it's not the first time that he has attacked Iran in particular. Like, there's a lot of different things going on here. And to simplify it down to the dastardly Israel is behind all of it, manipulating him. I don't hate Jews, by the way. Again, very interesting that he prefaced it by saying that particular statement.
He shouldn't have gone along with it. He should have pushed back. But to pretend that Trump woke up one morning, it's like, no, I think
I'm not suggesting that, to be clear.
No, Israel pushed him. The prime minister, and by the way, it's not Israel. There are a lot of people who disagree in Israel. I know some of them.
Also, let's be very clear. If you think the president is so feeble-minded, you should be using that he can be, like, just bullied into invading Iran. You should be out there pushing for the 25th Amendment. You should be out there pushing for impeachment. Tucker Carlson isn't doing that. Tucker Carlson isn't pushing for, like, impeachment of Donald Trump on the basis of him being, like, a weak-willed moron. Nothing that he is doing follows from his professed ideas here. But what does follow is that he is well aware that this is going to get him some people who are going to be watching his content in the interest of being informed of both sides, and then he's going to radicalize them into consistent viewers of his content, you know?
It was the prime minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who pushed our president into doing this. And I hope this is the last time that Netanyahu or any foreign head of state will ever push an American president to do something that hurts America.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think we may be, as you yourself said earlier, at a tipping point in terms of the rapid decline within the United States for support for Israel. Maybe. And you see it huge. I mean, you've seen it for several years on the Democratic side, you're now seeing it on the conservative side, and you're seeing a collapse amongst younger people. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. How quickly is that going to change the politics of Israel in the United States?
I mean, it's hard to know. There doesn't seem to be a direct connection, not just on Israel or foreign policy, but on almost any issue between what our leaders believe and do and what the public thinks and wants. The public begins to believe, in their frustration at their declining standard of living, for example, or declining birth rates, or whatever it is that's getting worse, and a lot is, that there's no way to use legitimate means.
I'm sorry. I'm real sorry here. Like,
at their declining standard of living, for example, or declining birth rates, or whatever it is that's getting.
I'm sorry, normal people who aren't white nationalists aren't sitting around worried about declining birth rates. Like, you guys see what I mean here, right? Like, this guy is like slipping in white nationalist talking points in an interview with The Economist. It's so frustrating to see people like speaking well of this interview or any of his recent criticism of Israel, because you can find people who criticize Israel on, the national stage who are not doing this white nationalist shit.
Worse, and a lot is, that there's no way to.
Oh, and I guess I should provide a bit of context there. The idea of declining birth rates is like this white nationalist fear of like, well, the population is going to decline because white people aren't having enough babies, and whatever are we going to do about it? Eventually, the humanity will cease to exist because people will stop having children, and it's an argument essentially against a couple of different things. One, it's an argument against immigration, because their arguments are, well, if we're, reinforcing our workforce with immigrants, what we really need to do is end immigration and incentivize, the whites to have more babies. And it's essentially like a dog whistle for great replacement theory, right? And number two, which also notably an anti-Semitic conspiracy that alleges that the Jews are facilitating immigration in order to replace the strong, vibrant white people with, degenerate, weak, non-white people. It's disgusting. It's a disgusting anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, right? It is also pushing the idea that, like, essentially, you should be worried about the birth rate because, hey, your luxury life that you're living has made you soft and weak and unwilling to like have babies, and we need to return to when women's livelihoods lacked autonomy and they were forced to get pregnant and give birth, and that will boost the birth rate. And you know what? Hey, maybe we need to make the working conditions of people in this country worse and worse so that it resembles more like it did when birth rates were a little bit higher. Hey, maybe we should embrace Make America Healthy again and this anti-science boom so that we can, in fact, increase child mortality to encourage people to have even more children in case, one of them dies early. Like, it is one of the ideas here that is behind a lot of different movements that have currently, wrapped around our country here like a python squeezing the life out of it. It is a disgusting set of beliefs And Tucker Carlson just casually throws it in there, because not a lot of people are so politically brained as I am, where I watch this stuff and pay attention to this stuff nonstop. And it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. I did a video a while ago about this birth rate stuff. I think it involved the couple that looks like their brother and sister who go to the pro-birth conventions that are held by rich white people. It's very, very weird. I recommend you check out that video.
Use legitimate means to change it. Voting doesn't work. If they believe that, then they will by definition find other ways, and those ways are destructive, and I don't want that. So I think it's very important.
Also, Tucker Carlson is very much playing for the masses here, which is why his voice is very carefully modulated in this faux concern troll tone that he's doing right now. I don't want people to get hurt. Getting hurt is bad. It's such an affected demeanor that I find it makes my skin crawl. I find this all deeply hateful.
And those ways are destructive, and I don't want that. So I think it's very important that a government, even a non-democracy, even a monarchy, respond to the concerns of the population. You can ignore them for a while. If you ignore them for too long, you get overthrown.
Let's talk, though, a little bit more about how this declining support for Israel, which I think is one of the most significant political shifts in the United States in recent years, how is that shaping the MAGA movement? I mean, are you now seeing...
Yeah, it's the reasonable man voice. It's all cake. Exactly. I'm just a simple man. I just want good things, and I don't want bad things. It's weird and off-putting.
I mean, when I look at the opinion polls, I'm told that there's 100% support amongst MAGA or 95% support for the war. On the other hand, you're clearly a man with a large number of followers who is making a very, very different argument.
I was standing next to Trump at his house when he got elected. I've known him a long time. I talked to him a lot. So, I don't fully understand what MAGA is, but I know that the core...
Okay, I'm sorry. You are LARPing as a journalist in 2026, and you're coming out there and you're like, I don't fully understand what MAGA is. I'm sorry. I find this weird as hell. I want to play a clip for you, and I might actually have to cut this from the final video, but I'm going to play a clip for you guys. It's from the television show Community. And very specifically, it's a scene from an episode where they parody and make fun of American politics. And what Tucker Carlson is doing right now is just the white nationalist version of Jeff Winger's political speech here.
My name is Jeff. I'm no politician. I'm just a fella. I think that beer should be cold and boots should be dusty. I think 9/11 was bad. And freedom? Well, I think that's just a little bit better.
That's what Tucker Carlson is doing in a nutshell right now, and it's driving me nuts. It's driving me absolutely nuts to then see a bunch of people clapping for it. It's driving me insane. 15 years and still relevant, yeah.
Promise of the Trump political movement, Make America Great Again, was America First. And it was articulated by him repeatedly at every campaign stop for 10 years. So everyone in America knows this. I think everyone globally knows this. The core of this movement was the idea that
Just in case you are unaware, by the way, America First is a slogan used by the American Party back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, specifically for racists and by racists. The idea that, hey, everyone who is born in this country deserves more rights than people who immigrated into this country. It was specifically a backlash against immigrants from Europe. And the fact that Tucker Carlson is that's the best thing that Donald Trump has brought into modern politics, That's crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me.
You would, and we could debate about how you do it, but you would try to put the interest of your country at the center of every calculation about how you manage your country and how you interact with the world. It's the single most obvious and single most popular political concept ever devised.
It's not. And I'll tell you why. Because the interests of a country, a nation state, are not the same as the interests of the people who happen to live inside of that country. Nation states have very different priorities. Namely, the priority of a nation state is to preserve itself, perpetuate itself, and grow itself. The idea being to build power, to grow, and to encompass more territory. It is an inherently different goal than what individual people within a country have. You know, your individual goal is to be able to like make enough money so that you can like live, so you can maybe have a family, so you can have a house, so that you can like grill and chill, and so you can retire and not like live in destitution when you're old. Those interests are not shared by a nation state. And I think that like the conflation of these two things is really, really dangerous because it is what sets the groundwork for essentially the death machine within fascism, right? It is what essentially puts into motion here the idea that, well, in order to be a true member of society, a true citizen of the nation, you need to be willing to sacrifice yourself for the greater good of that country. And the greater good of that country is not to make sure other people can like retire. It's not to make sure that other people can make a living wage. It's not to make sure that other people have rights. It is to perpetuate the power of the state. Nazism, fascism, it requires the subjugation of the individual to the state. And the conflation of these two things, I think, is a deeply dangerous step towards that fascist ideology. America first equals whites only. Well, yeah, and when Tucker Carlson is using America first, he is using it less so in like the 1910s kind of American Party nativist sense, where it's like we don't like all these European immigrants, the Irish and Italians coming to this country. This country is for Americans only. He's using it in the KKK sense, during which America First was used in the 1920s, which, worth noting, the Ku Klux Klan adopted America First as their slogan. So, you know, worth noting in this conversation of Tucker Carlson saying this is the greatest thing Donald Trump has given us.
Do you think Donald Trump has betrayed America First?
I think that this war is something that he promised he wouldn't do, not once, but countless times. And until YouTube is banned, we'll be able to prove that. And the idea behind it is not only contrary to America First, it may be its inverse. There's no argument that changing the regime in Iran helps the United States. And if there is an argument, I'd love to hear it. And by the way, if that argument is sensible and convincing, I will support it.
You know, Tucker Carlson, not actually anti-war after all. You know, just give him the right argument, and he'll be super on board with bombing Iran. He'll be the first in line to turn into John McCain. The spirit of John McCain is alive and well, I guess, in the MAGA right.
All I care about is the United States. But I haven't heard that argument a single time. All I've heard is the kind of tiresome fear-mongering about nuclear weapons, which Iran did not have. It's insulting, actually, even to make that argument to me, that Iran's nuclear program posed such a threat to the United States 3 weeks ago that we had to launch a full-scale war against them. No one's even arguing that because it's stupid. And the fact
it is also the case that the Trump administration has not even bothered to settle upon one given war goal with what is happening right now outside of opening the Strait of Hormuz, which was open to begin with prior to the United States attacking Iran. Like, what what is happening right now is essentially Donald Trump is attempting to flood the zone when it comes to what the war goal of the United States even is. It's awful. Everything is awful.
Facts don't support it. So why did we do this when we did it? Because Israel wanted to do it. They chose the timing here. No one disputes that. And timing.
Well, I don't look. I've read a lot about the Iran conflict here, but from what I've read, the decision to carry out these attacks was done jointly, like months ago. So all of the negotiation stuff was pure theater. There was no intention to not attack Iran. The idea here that, oh, well, obviously Israel chose the date.
Everyone should keep in mind that the other purpose of this, besides anti-Semitism, is to build a post-MAGA far-right, since they know that Trump's popularity is plummeting. Be ready.
And that's exactly why I personally am deeply worried about the glazing of Tucker Carlson and the idea that this look at Tucker Carlson's right about this, because Tucker Carlson is someone who has long been said to harbor political ambition, who has long been said to have his eye on political office, particularly the presidency. It is worth remembering that Tucker Carlson is the heir to the Swanson frozen dinner fortune. Let me just check. How big is that? Yeah, he personally is worth tens of millions of dollars, but I know he stands to inherit like a crazy amount of money. Let's see. The net worth of the Carlson family, according to Forbes, as of last year, was $2.2 billion. So, it is worth noting here that he is from an incredibly wealthy family, and he has political ambition for a higher office. And he is right now being given this idea of being given this, not idea, veneer of respectability and reasonability that is deeply dangerous, especially as we start looking forward to a post-Donald Trump era where, outside of Tucker Carlson, I don't know anyone who is capable of wielding a cult of personality comparable to that of Donald Trump. Tucker Carlson has the name recognition, he has built up the trust, and right now, a lot of folks who are otherwise very reasonable and very smart seem to be giving him a pass and using him as this example of how reasonability is breaking through on the far right. And I view that argument as an extension of this Obama era delusion that the fever will break. It is not breaking, my friends. This is fascism making dupes of a whole swath of our media right now, both independent and establishment. And it's very, very dangerous. Okay? Yeah, exactly. It's not exactly the same as Trump's cult of personality, but he does stand to be a torchbearer for this kind of far-right populist movement. And Tucker Carlson, you can say a lot of things about him, but Tucker Carlson is smart. He knows exactly what he is doing. He's not Donald Trump, where his brain is just soup and is just going along on base political instinct. He's been working on this his entire career. He's been working on building this up. And I'm worried about where this could go, because Tucker Carlson has long weaponized the idea of himself as a reasonable man. And I want you to understand there is nothing reasonable about his positions. There is nothing reasonable about white nationalism.
In war, as in life, is a lot of it, and it determines outcome. And they hadn't thought through what was going to happen next. The Israelis hadn't, and we hadn't, because we didn't have time to.
It sounds to me like you think he has betrayed it.
This war is clearly contrary to what he promised and contrary to the idea that your leaders should put your interests before those of foreigners, period. We put Israel's interests before ours. Trump did that. Bibi's wasn't elected president of my country. My president was. I supported him, obviously, voted for him. But, yeah.
Let's talk about the way the debate develops in this country, because I think you're right. It's extremely difficult to talk about the subject that you and I have just spent the last half hour talking about, because there is a conflation very often. Anybody who
Why is it difficult? We're just talking. I'm a guy just like anybody else. I like my beers cold and my horse is strong and virile.
criticizes Israel is vulnerable to being called anti-Zionist or anti-Semitic, and there's conflation by the exact people you've just been talking about, in the kind of firmament of political discussion.
Do you think that's a good faith response or a tactic?
I'm about to ask you that question. Clearly, I think you and I agree. We have both been critical of the Israeli government. I just want to kind of clarify terms a bit here.
Well, I've really been critical of the Israeli government.
I've been plenty critical of the Israeli government. I've told you at the beginning that we were against this war.
What do you think of Gaza?
What do I think of Gaza?
Yeah.
I think the war in Gaza, to start with, was a perfectly reasonable response in response to the horrors of October 7th. I think now the places, I mean, I've been there. Have you been to Gaza? I've been to Gaza since the war started.
They would not
it's
let
catastrophic.
me into Gaza. Trust me, very few journalists get into Gaza.
Yeah, no, I went with the IDF. It's the only way that you can go in, but nonetheless you go in and you see a flattened place. I think it is a disaster for the future of Israel, a disaster for the Palestinian people, a horror, 70,000 people dead.
Why would you describe it first as a disaster for the future of Israel? You've got tens of thousands of civilians murdered, but it's foremost a disaster for the future of Israel? No, it's foremost a disaster for the families of the dead kids.
Absolutely. I made 3 points.
Because everybody sucks up to Israel in this way that suggests they're afraid. And everyone is afraid, and you know that. Everyone's like...
Again, this is partly what I'm talking about, right? Everyone sucks up to Israel because they're afraid. You know, because they control everything. We're getting literal, like... on screen, all practically visualized triple parentheses here. It's crazy. And I do not believe for a second that Tucker Carlson makes a distinction between Jewish people and Israel. I think he knows exactly what he is doing here. And he knows that he is doing it in a way that makes him come across as like the reasonable man in the room. Because, again, when he is sitting across the table from someone who is carrying water for a genocide, it's pretty easy to look like the, serious man in the room who's, seeing it clearly. But he has an ulterior motive here. He is not here because he cares about Palestinian kids. He just talked about the best thing that Donald Trump ever did was America first. He doesn't give a shit about dead kids in another country. He just sat there and said, hey, if someone brought me a good argument for the Iran war, I'd totally be in favor of it. A conflict where like 10% of the people who've been killed have been children. He's so full of shit, and people just aren't closely reading this, and it's so frustrating to me.
The real problem is calling people anti-Semites allows real anti-Semites to flourish. It's like, no, actually, the real problem with calling people anti-Semites who aren't is accusing the innocent of a crime they didn't commit. And the real crime in Gaza is killing people who did nothing wrong. So those are the real problems, I would say. But no one can say it because you have to be like, oh, no, but really, October 7th
I don't know what you're talking about, Gaza. We're having a...
Everyone watching this knows what I'm talking about.
Well, let's get on to that right now.
Yeah.
Because you are critical of the government of Israel. Do you believe in Israel's right to exist? Would you consider yourself a Zionist in that narrow definition?
What does that mean, a right to exist?
The existence of the political state of Israel as
but
it has
a right. What does that mean?
That you think it should continue in its existence as a state right now. So you do not agree with Iran, for example.
Well, let me just ask, since you asked me the question, it's fair for me to get you to define the term so I can answer it. You've asked 2 questions. The first was, do you believe Israel has a right to exist? And the second question was, do you believe Israel should continue to go on as a nation state? And those are very different questions. So I often hear the phrase...
Having been created as a political entity in 1948,
does it have a right to exist? Is that what you're asking?
I don't want to get hung up on the right. Should it continue to exist? That's how I define narrowly Zionism.
Because
Jesus Christ, this is like just the worst. It's just the worst. You should not throw in your lot with people who are pushing like anti-war takes predicated on hatred. You know, I have said numerous times on this show, obviously, Israel and Jews, not the same thing. The conflation there is very dangerous. It is very, very dangerous. The problem is Tucker Carlson is not a good faith interlocutor. Tucker Carlson is not arguing in good faith. Tucker Carlson has been pushing like anti-Semitic conspiracy theories since he was back on Fox News. For fuck's sake, he had a white nationalist writer, a lead writer on his show for years. It's crazy.
The phrase you used was devised by the Israeli government. Of course, does it have a right to exist? And so my question to you would be, what does that mean?
Why don't you answer my question? It's a very simple question.
I don't know what your question is. Are you asking, does it have a right to exist? Or do I want it to exist? Do I seek its destruction?
Fine, answer it that way.
Well, of course I don't seek its destruction.
Okay,
I've already said, as you know, because I...
This is why, and again, he is right here.
I never trust people who play dumb to argue semantics.
Thank you for the $5 super chat. Yeah, Tucker Carlson literally called it a great replacement when he was on Fox for years, talking about how they were trying to instill demographic change. Like, he's still pushing the same shit, right? And part of the issue here is that he's right to point out that the question of does Israel have the right to exist is a bullshit question. Because whether or not a state exists is not predicated on a right, it is predicated on power. Nation states are vehicles and structures dedicated to creating and maintaining power, usually with force. And so when we talk about the rights of a nation state, you know, does North Korea have a right to exist? No. But it has the power to exist. So whether or not it has a right is an irrelevant question. It does exist. And it has the force of arms to enable its continuance, right? And when we're talking about this, it is a question of power. It is not a question of rights. And this question does bother me. But the way that Tucker Carlson encounters this question is instead to say, you know, oh, well, obviously I don't seek the destruction of the state of Israel. And I think people taking these fascists as good faith is deeply dangerous. It's deeply, deeply dangerous.
I said it to you. I don't want Israel to be destroyed or have to use nuclear weapons.
We've established that you are in that narrow terms a Zionist. If that's how
I'm
we're
in
going
no
to define
sense a Zionist. I don't want any country to be destroyed at all, and I don't want people to die, particularly ones who committed no crime, because I don't believe in killing innocents, period. That's the basis of Western civilization. Eastern civilization is a whole different view. They believe in collective punishment. I don't.
So you're in no sense a Zionist?
I don't even know what that means. Why don't you define the term, and then I'll tell you whether I am.
I've just defined it.
What's a Zionist?
That a Zionist, in my narrow term, this definition is that the state of Israel, the political state of Israel, has the right to continue existing.
The right? Where does that right come from? What do you mean? These are like, I'm not being a lawyer about it. I just want to know what you're asking me.
You answer the question.
Because I don't know what you're asking me.
Let's go to the
Wait,
third.
no.
And like, it is true that like she has no idea what she's talking about. She has a script that she has used so many different times before, and she's not interested in examining Tucker Carlson's white nationalism. She's not interested in interrogating his claims about demographic shifts or declining birth rates or anything like that. She's not interested in any of it. She's trying to get him on different talking points that are predicated on this kind of bullshit terminology. Because she went in assuming a certain frame of reference that she never should have assumed. Okay?
Not seeking its destruction is a very specific place for him to lead her to. It's a perfectly deniable statement. He's not saying anything about the nature of Israel or how he feels about the people.
Exactly. And he's also not saying anything about any kind, like anything verifiable about any kind of existing power structure or any kind of existing dynamic. He's deliberately trying to simplify this question into an obfuscation, right? And it's very, very frustrating because I feel like if a journalist who goes in clear-eyed about who Tucker Carlson is, what he stands for, what MAGA is, what MAGA stands for, they go in there understanding what they're dealing with. But very clearly, by just asking this question, it kind of reveals she has no idea how to deal with someone like Tucker Carlson. Like the fact that she's like, well, I went to Gaza, and he points out like, oh yeah, well, you went, and then she's like, well, I went with the IDF. It's like, well, yeah, do you not think that colored your trip there? like the fact that you had a curated view of the conflict presented to you? Does that not tell you anything? Like the fact that Tucker Carlson can take advantage of this at all is indicative of the profound failure in mainstream journalism and the mainstream ideological spectrum here. Like this is in part a failure of the Biden administration, right? When Biden refused to do anything about the ongoing genocide, when Biden helped clamp down on college protesters, it created this specific niche for Tucker Carlson to take advantage of. Like, this is exactly why, well, at least one of the reasons exactly why Biden should not have done what he did to suppress free speech on this issue. And I've talked about this a lot, but fascists love to take advantage of ideological real estate that is left vacant or unused. And that is exactly what Tucker Carlson is doing here. He is within like this establishment media space, carving out this niche for himself. And it is deeply dangerous because there are going to be some people who see this and think, yes, this is the reasonable conservative. And I feel like in the time we're about to go into, as we near a kind of post-Trump shift, that is a deeply, deeply dangerous place to let him reside and grow power. I'm really worried about his ability to command a MAGA audience.
I think it a lot. You don't want to define your question, and I don't know why. I don't know what you're asking me. I've already said I don't want Israel to be destroyed. I don't want anyone to be killed. And you've said, does Israel have a right to exist? Does it have my question is, what right are you talking about? Does Britain have a right to exist? Does the United States have a right to exist?
There was a world order built up after 1945 which suggested that aggression should not be condoned into countries. Now that countries with borders have the right to intervene.
I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Which is why the first thing that Israel did within 2 weeks of this war starting, which is supposedly existential for them, was take southern Lebanon, take someone else's country, as they have done repeatedly. And no one even mentions that. And so I guess I would be opposed to that because I think Lebanon has a right to exist. I thought Gaza had a right to exist. But I noticed that as soon as we started portioning rights, only one country gets them.
No, I did not say that. You're absolutely putting words into my mouth.
So because I believe, here's what I do believe, since you asked. I believe in universally applicable standards. And if they're not universally applicable, they're not.
Again, no, he doesn't. He doesn't believe that. He explicitly said he's America first. He explicitly, in the first part of this clip, contradicted this idea of universal rights, universal ideas where people have, a unified concept applied to them. This is just bullshit. That sounds good in the moment. And if you're not paying attention to what he says and just nodding along and being happy that someone is fighting an establishment narrative, then you're actually internalizing some really, really harmful shit here.
Standards, their preferences. That's why I believe in human rights, not ethnic rights. I don't think Jews have more rights or less rights than anyone else.
I believe in human rights, but America first. We get that demographic change out of this country with forced mass deportations. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. Tucker Carlson is just a liar and a charlatan, and he's deeply dangerous. And someone in chat asked if I believe he's going to run for president. I do think he's going to make an attempt to run for president, and I think that he has potential to actively build an insane amount of support as Republican voters look around for names that they recognize, trust, and think are going to, have, this idea of not getting us involved in foreign wars, and are driven closer and closer towards this, Christian nationalist, isolationist point of view. And Tucker Carlson has been setting himself up to be and exist in that niche for a very long time. Like, for crying out loud, he did a episode of his show about how he got attacked by a demon. He woke up in the middle of the night covered in scratches, and there's no explanation for it, except the fact that he sleeps in a bed with his dogs. But no, what wasn't his dogs had to have been a demon. Like, he's very clearly trying to build his credentials for a very specific type of ideological play towards some kind of political office, and I think he's going to go for the presidency. And this is why I'm deeply worried about him running, because this is the exact kind of crazy, the exact kind of subtle white nationalism, and subtle here. I'm just saying Tucker Carlson knows how to dog whistle like crazy, and if you don't recognize the dog whistles, you might not be picking up on that white nationalism, but oh my God, is everything he's saying dripping in that hateful ideology. So with all of that said, folks, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment longer than 8 words. It really helps in the algorithm. And folks, we need to organize regardless of what happens. With Tucker Carlson, we need to get organized as soon as possible, both for the midterms and for the general election in 2028. And for whatever lies beyond that, our only hope is building up local power. I recommend people join with their local political orgs that are full of like-minded folks. I typically advocate that you guys join your local Democratic Party and like you're boarding a pirate vessel and radicalize them to more progressive policy, pro-working class policy. Join your local DSA, organize your local labor sector, get working people involved in the political process. Let us build power here in America on a local level and build upward from there so that we can have a sustainable, long-lasting movement that doesn't disappear after one election cycle. Okay? It requires people to show up. It requires people to be active. Let's kick those corporate Democrats out of politics. Let's take over the Democratic Party for working class people like it was meant to be. And let's also look forward to the future. Okay?
Jack, you're not considering the possibility that one of Tucker's dogs was attacked by a demon. Which is the same thing.
What if it was a demon dog? And folks, if you need help getting started, joining your local Dems or your local DSA, we've got people in our community to help you, okay? So join our Discord, reach out to GamerG for help getting started with your local DSA, reach out to Dragonfly for help getting started with your local Dems. They both have a lot of organizing experience to help you get involved and be successful. And also, if you don't want to go to the Discord, you can come over to riverboat.gg, which is this website right here. And you can usually find one or both of them in the chat. And you can ask them questions, chat with them, etc. And last but not least, folks, please do check out ImogeneOlivia.com. Gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes. Also tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks. People love it. It fits. And also, it is non-tucking, beautiful lingerie, elegant, sexy, and it will fit. Wider band sizes, wider gusset, for your comfort. Just try it out. Check it out. We got new styles, colors, and sizes coming in the near future. Check it out. Link down in the description. Let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.